Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the language of integration, decoding the ASEAN Economic Community. We're going to dive into a truly massive, historic undertaking. We'll look at the actual nuts and bolts of how you fuse entirely different nations together. And honestly, we're going to discover the surprising, everyday tool that's absolutely required to make this whole thing work.
Right, let's just jump straight into the foundational puzzle of this entire region. Think about this for a second. How do 10 distinct nations, countries with completely different governments, diverse religions, and a whole mix of native tongues, actually build a single unified economy? Seriously, how do you negotiate complex trade agreements, policies, and laws when everyone at the table speaks a different language?
Well, the somewhat surprising and honestly incredibly simple answer, they learn English. It literally becomes the ultimate bridge connecting all these diverse nations. But keep in mind, learning it here isn't just about making casual small talk at the water cooler. It's about mastering a highly technical language of diplomacy and policy.
Let's do a quick flyby of the timeline to map out the hardware of this integration. ASEAN was originally founded back in 1967 by 5 countries, really to promote regional peace and stability. Fast forward through the 90s, and membership basically doubles, bringing in nations like Vietnam and Cambodia. Then 2007 rolls around, bringing this highly ambitious blueprint that eventually culminated in the official establishment of the ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC, in 2015. And this integration created a massive single market and production base. We are talking about an economic zone encompassing nearly 650 million citizens. To put that into perspective, that's roughly double the population of the United States. The goal here is absolutely monumental. They want to allow a free flow of goods, services, capital, and skilled labor across all these borders, basically turning 10 individual markets into one absolute global powerhouse. Section 1. English as a lingua franca, the operating system. Let's look at how this communication infrastructure is actually built.
So, that operating system we just mentioned, it's called English as a lingua franca, or ELF for short. By definition, this refers to any written or oral exchange involving at least one non-native speaker of English. It functions as an essential socio-cultural framework. Honestly, without it, politicians, diplomats, and bureaucrats across these 10 nations simply couldn't negotiate treaties or draft policies without facing a total communication breakdown.
Now, check out the high stakes of this integration, especially for Thai policymakers. Historically, while citizens in neighboring countries like Vietnam and Malaysia scored well above 600 in standardized English proficiency, Thai scores hover dangerously low, somewhere between 200 and 300. This stark contrast highlights a massive hurdle. To actively participate in and actually shape the AEC, Thailand has had to urgently address this proficiency gap.
Section 2. Decoding political terminology. Because to catch up and actively shape regional policy on the global stage, Thai political scientists have to do way more than just make basic conversation. They have to master the highly specific, complex language of their field.
A huge hurdle in this learning process is deciding how to actually adapt complex English political concepts into the Thai language. Scholars face this constant tug of war. Do they use translation, trying to find an exact native equivalent that, might miss the nuance entirely, or do they use transliteration, sort of awkwardly adapting foreign words phonetically? It's a real academic headache that they struggle with on a daily basis.
And getting this terminology exactly right is absolutely crucial, because an improper adaptation isn't just a minor typo. The consequences escalate super fast. It leads to misunderstandings, which then become misinterpretations and ultimately result in misquotations. If you get the translation wrong, you can literally derail international academic peer reviews, compromise cross-border policy analysis, and totally lose the analytic clarity you need to negotiate effectively within the AEC.
Section 3. Navigating cultural differences and ethics. So, beyond just vocabulary, this regional operating system requires a really deep awareness of cross-cultural nuances and rigorous research protocols.
To communicate effectively and equitably across 10 very different borders, academics in the region rely on a high degree of what they term political correctness. Strictly defined within this context, it means consciously avoiding forms of expression or action that are perceived to exclude, marginalize, or insult any of the diverse socio-economic or cultural groups within the ASEAN community. It's really all about building a respectful, functional discourse.
And this brilliantly illustrates why strict ethical frameworks are just so vital here.
Ethics in this context isn't just about, avoiding plagiarism in a university paper. It's about safely, respectfully, and honestly conducting qualitative field research in politically dynamic and sometimes unrestful climates. Adhering to these guidelines protects the integrity of the data and, crucially, the safety of the researchers themselves.
Section 4. Tools of the Trade, Advocacy, and Policy Briefs. Okay, so once a researcher has mastered the language and gathered their ethical, cross-cultural research, how do they actually go about influencing the massive machinery of the AEC?
Let's see how this builds into real-world action. Survey data from Thai political scientists reveals a universally agreed-upon playbook for effective political advocacy. It consists of 6 methodical steps, starting from identifying the issue and getting the facts, all the way down to proposing a solution and following up. This is the exact blueprint designed to move public and governmental opinion in a highly structured way.
Now, when it comes to step 5, actually presenting that proposed solution, researchers rely heavily on policy briefs. And these briefs, they have strict formatting rules. Because policymakers are notoriously short on time, and let's be honest, attention, a brief must be under 5 pages, use at least a 12-point font for readability, totally ditch the academic jargon, and put the sweeteners, the absolute most crucial takeaways and recommendations, right at the very front to immediately catch the reader's eye.
Section 5. The Future of ASEAN. Armed with fluent English, rigorous ethical research methods, and sharp, concise policy briefs, this new generation of political scientists and researchers will determine the ultimate trajectory of the entire region.
Right now, they face a historic crossroads. Will they use these tools to build a genuinely people-centered community, one bound by shared values of justice, freedom, and human rights? Or will the AEC fracture back into a purely utilitarian arrangement? A standard intergovernmental coalition focused strictly on economic efficiency with little to no regard for social integration. So the crucial point I want to leave you with today is this. As language barriers fall, as millions of people communicate through the shared operating system of English, and as these 10 incredibly diverse nations integrate their economies, which version of ASEAN's future will ultimately prevail? It's a massive question that the next generation of regional leaders, armed with the data and the language to share it, are answering right now. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems that connect our world.